Welcome back to the British Accent Podcast. I'm Emily, and today we're diving into something a bit different: the beauty of doing nothing, and why resting isn't actually a waste of time.
Hi everyone, Nick here. It's funny, isn't it? In a world that's always pushing us to do more, move faster, and check off endless to-do lists, taking a proper rest sometimes feels almost like rebellion.
Exactly, Nick. Especially when it comes to learning English, or any new skill, we get caught in this mindset that every moment has to be productive, that if we're not speaking, studying, or practicing, we're falling behind.
But here's the thing, rest isn't just a pause or a break. It's an essential part of growth. Without it, we burn out, lose focus, and ironically, slow down our progress.
Totally. And rest looks different for everyone. For some, it might be a quiet cup of tea, staring out the window without guilt. For others, it's a slow walk, or simply sitting still and breathing.
And in those moments of doing nothing, our brain is actually busy. It's processing, absorbing, and making connections, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
So today, let's talk about why embracing those quiet moments can actually boost your English learning journey, and why giving yourself permission to rest is a powerful tool, not a setback.
I love that, giving yourself permission. Because so often, learners feel guilty when they're not actively studying or speaking English every minute. But rest is where your mind catches up with everything you've taken in.
Yes, and when we push too hard without breaks, it's like trying to fill a cup that's already overflowing. Nothing stays in, and you feel drained. But when you pause and let that cup settle, it's ready to hold more.
It's also about quality, not just quantity. Sometimes a short, focused session after a good rest can be way more effective than hours of tired, distracted studying.
And think about how often we underestimate the power of just being. You don't always need to be speaking or writing to improve. Listening to English music, watching a show without subtitles, or even sitting quietly with English in the background, all of that counts.
Right. It's like your brain's taking a little nap but still working behind the scenes. And when you come back, you're fresher, more motivated, and maybe even surprised by how much you remember.
Plus, rest helps with emotional balance. Learning a language can be frustrating, and sometimes stepping back gives you space to breathe and reduce stress.
And less stress means your brain can learn better. It's all connected. So maybe instead of feeling guilty for doing nothing, we can start seeing it as part of the process.
I think that shift in mindset is so important. When rest becomes part of your learning strategy, it turns from a luxury into a necessity. And that makes the whole journey more sustainable and more enjoyable.
Absolutely. And another thing, rest can help with creativity too. When your mind isn't overloaded, it's free to make new connections, come up with fresh ideas, or find easier ways to remember vocabulary and grammar.
That's so true. Some of my best aha moments happen when I'm not actively studying, maybe during a walk, or just relaxing at home. It's like the brain is quietly piecing things together in the background.
Exactly, and that's why doing nothing isn't really doing nothing. It's giving your brain the space it needs to work smarter, not harder.
And it's worth remembering that everyone needs rest differently. Some people might need longer breaks, others just short pauses between tasks. The key is to listen to your own rhythm and respect it.
Yeah, it's a very personal thing. And sometimes the pressure to always be productive can make people feel like they're failing if they rest. But that couldn't be further from the truth.
Definitely. Rest is part of the journey, not the enemy of progress. When you accept that, learning English becomes less stressful and more natural.
So maybe next time you feel the urge to push through when you're tired, try pausing instead. Give yourself permission to do nothing for a bit. It might be exactly what you need to move forward.
And you don't need to feel guilty about it either. Honestly, the guilt is often louder than the actual need to keep going. But when you rest and let go of that guilt, you come back more focused, more present, and with more space in your head for the language to land.
It's funny, isn't it? How sometimes we think the answer is to do more, study harder, cram in more hours, but the real answer might be stepping back and breathing. Letting the language settle a bit.
Yeah, like planting seeds. You don't keep digging them up to check if they are growing. You water them, let the sun do its thing, and trust the process.
That's such a good metaphor. Language learning is a slow-growing plant, not an overnight delivery. And if you're always working, always pushing, you don't leave room for reflection, or even enjoyment.
Exactly. And let's not forget, English isn't just a task, it's a tool for life. And if your life needs some quiet, some softness, some space, English can fit into that. It can live in the calm moments too.
You can listen to a slow podcast while lying down. Or whisper a few English sentences to yourself in bed. Or even just sit with a notebook, not to study, but to think in English for a bit, no pressure.
That's it. No pressure. Rest and language can exist together. You don't need to always be grinding. You're allowed to simply be. And the language will still be there when you're ready.
And sometimes, it's in those quiet, low-pressure moments that things actually click. Like when you're washing your face at night and a phrase you heard earlier just floats back into your mind, effortlessly.
Totally. I've had entire moments of understanding, just walking to the shop, or staring out the window. The brain doesn't always need noise to learn. Sometimes it needs silence. And trust.
And honestly, this idea that you have to earn your rest is just outdated. Rest is part of the process, not a reward for doing something. You don't need to prove anything by being exhausted.
Exactly. You can be a real learner and still have quiet evenings. Still take naps. Still not touch your books for a day or two. That doesn't erase the progress you've made.
If anything, it gives your progress space to grow roots. Because a tired brain doesn't hold onto language well. But a rested one? It surprises you.
So if someone out there is listening to this while lying in bed thinking, I should have studied more today, breathe. You're doing fine. Rest is valid. Your journey doesn't disappear because you paused.
And even now, by listening, you are connected to English. It's still part of your day. Gentle, real, and human. That counts. It always counts.
I think there's something powerful about just letting yourself be, without always chasing results. Especially with language learning. It grows in the background when you stop forcing it.
Absolutely. Like when you're on the train, just listening to someone speak English in a podcast or a movie. You might not feel like you're doing much, but your brain's absorbing patterns, rhythm, intonation.
Right? And you don't need to write notes or repeat things out loud every time. Sometimes it's just about being present with the language, letting it become familiar, like a background soundtrack to your life.
And in those moments when you're not doing anything, you're actually building comfort. You're teaching your brain not to panic when it hears English. That alone is massive progress.
Honestly, some of my best breakthroughs came when I stopped trying so hard. When I finally gave myself permission to be a human being, not a machine.
Because being kind to yourself isn't a weakness, it's what keeps you going. You don't need to be in motion every minute to be moving forward. Stillness can be full of growth.
And I think for a lot of learners, especially the ones juggling work, family, and everything else, this message is really important. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to just exist with the language, without performing for it.
Exactly. It's not about proving something every single day. It's about having a relationship with English that feels sustainable. Like something you can actually live with long term, not something that burns you out in 2 weeks.
And sometimes doing nothing is actually a way of letting what you've already learned settle in. You give space for your mind to connect the dots in the background. That's when real retention starts happening.
Yeah, like after you've been practicing for a while, and then you take a day off, and the next time you speak, suddenly you're more fluent or more confident. It's like your brain needed that silence to grow stronger.
Exactly. We often think silence means failure, but it can actually mean integration. You're letting the language sink in without pressure. That's not slacking off. That's smart learning.
So if you're listening to this right now and you feel guilty for not studying today, don't. Rest is part of your strategy. Doing nothing is sometimes the most productive thing you can do.
And you know, Nick, this kind of mindset shift, realizing that you're not falling behind just because you're not grinding every day, can be so freeing. It makes English feel like a part of your life instead of a constant performance.
Absolutely. It's the difference between chasing English and living with it. When you allow space, when you let go of that urge to always be doing more, suddenly English becomes lighter. Like something that flows with you, not something you have to fight for.
Right, and sometimes those do-nothing days are when you're actually listening the most. You notice a word in a song you never paid attention to. Or a phrase in a film suddenly makes sense without subtitles. That kind of quiet learning is so underestimated.
And it's those moments that remind you, you are making progress. Even on the days when you're not writing in a notebook or repeating sentences into your phone. You're still soaking it in. Your brain's still working with it.
Totally. Language learning isn't just input-output. It's also emotion, rest, and presence. It's your thoughts, your stress levels, your environment. And when you give yourself a break, you're giving your learning space to breathe.
So if you're listening right now thinking, I didn't study today, or I just needed to rest, that's okay. Really. Your English journey isn't on pause just because you had a quiet day. Sometimes, those are the days your mind catches up.
Exactly. Rest isn't the opposite of learning. It's a part of it. And honestly, taking care of your mind, your body, your energy, it's one of the smartest things you can do as a language learner.
So, next time you find yourself doing nothing, don't feel guilty. You might be doing more than you realize.
Thanks for sharing this space with us today on the British Accent Podcast. We're proud of you for being here, whether you're actively learning or just letting English sit quietly in the background.
Take care of yourself, and we'll speak to you again soon.